together and support one another. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department has been honored to play a role in the recovery efforts. Our officers have been deployed to the affected areas to assist with search and rescue operations, food and water distribution, and responding to calls for service assisting the agencies in the area. I recently returned from Western North Carolina where I witnessed firsthand the damage caused by the hurricane. The road to recovery will be long and challenging for these areas. Our officers have been working tirelessly alongside the state and federal partners to provide aid and assistance to those in need. CMPD began preparing a response group to assist the towns of Black Mountain, Montreat, and Swannanoa late Friday evening. Our caravan of vehicles and equipment left early Sunday morning with 16 officers and 1 medic. Our officers were volunteers from CMPD SWAT, logistics, homicide, and dignitary protection. Our equipment contained 2 all-terrain vehicles and a command van capable of running drone operations and providing Wi-Fi and power access. We arrived just after noon after working our way around road closures and immediately deployed to assist the Black Mountain Police Department. Emergency officers in their town had been working more than 36 hours straight and were very happy to see us arrive to assist. The area had no electricity, no water, and almost no phone service. City government was working off of 1 cell phone that could get signal. CMPD was able to provide logistical help and deploy with their officers to start checking areas for injured people and evacuate anyone stranded. Our task group worked until just past midnight on that first night until we stopped. The next day we began more intensive search and rescues in the Swannanoa area. That area was hit a bit harder. You see along Highway 70 where entire a KOA campground was completely wiped out. There was a trailer park that we saw that they showed us. This used to be 17 trailers and you could see 10. That's one of the areas that while we didn't recover through our work efforts, we were not in the areas right now recovering a lot of bodies. I do believe these areas will be greatly affected after more intensive search in the area. Just the topography has changed. The river moved areas and we believe there's a lot still under in that area. We were joined that day for the search and rescue efforts by some amazing volunteers. We teamed up with that day, or those couple of days there, High Point Fire Department to assist us in our search efforts, and even some volunteers. Were 3 guys from Rock Hill who were a turnkey group, came up with chainsaws every day and worked, and that's what we were doing. We were cutting paths, going along when the road was washed out, you couldn't get over, we were fording the rivers, going up to the roads, cutting down what we could to free up the roads and assisting the people that needed to get out for medical care or medical need. There was so much work and so much outpouring of volunteers. It was a very heart-lifting to see everything that was going on. I'm going to tell just one example of, just to describe what we were doing. There's going to be an information packet with pictures and video of some of the work we did. This was at the top of the bee tree area of Swannanoa, very high elevation. There's a river there. There actually is the Bee Tree Reservoir where they were fearful of it also flooding again. And our SWAT officers and logistics officers had been up one side already that day. A lot of the residents up top, there's no getting down. The road was washed out and closed off with sections the size of school buses washed out. That was now little streams became rivers and rapids. So worked our way across as best we could. There were people that had thrown 2x4s over to get over, so everybody's going across like that to our river crossings. Got to the top on the first day. The SWAT and the team went up and informed neighbors, we're here to help you get out if you can. Some left that day. That was part of the first group of rescues. But many wanted to stay. They wanted to try to tough it out. Like I said, there's no water, no power, no nothing. But the people had a few days of supplies, they thought. Teams came down for that day and then received word through the Swannanoa Rescue, which we were working for, that a lot of the residents had decided they wanted to be assisted out that next day. So we planned for that. And just an example, like I said, one lady, you'll see the pictures and videos, not exactly mobile, could walk, but it was pretty rough terrain. We worked with Swiftwater Rescue. I believe they were out at Atlantic Beach, High Point Fire. Neighbors up there had side-by-side vehicles. We got her a little way down the mountain, maybe a quarter of the way, before the trees were too impassable for an ATV. So Swiftwater and our medic secured her to a gurney that you can carry, a rescue gurney, and we carried her down about a mile. The rest of that, we have some picture of that. She was just she was laughing with us the whole way, just happy to be getting down, along with the other, I think that day about 10 or 12 more residents we were escorting down. And at the bottom, we had to ford a river of her where lines were ran across the river and pulled her across. These are incidents where, you're doing training and you think or hope you never have to do this, but the training and the experience paid off that day, and everybody was just positive the entire time because these are the jobs we work and train for. We were able to help and rescue people, and they were so gracious that we were able to get out there and assist. And even that groups, and I've seen on some of the media, 3 people had horses that were helping us pull stuff down. They were cutting trees from top of horseback. One of the things that we brought up, that kept us going on this, we're talking about, the death and destruction in the area. We all came back energized from this trip. Every street we went to there, the neighbors were helping neighbors. They were already sharing water. The elderly were being moved into the homes that were maybe better prepared. Every street we could turn to, we're delivering water and everything the first day, but by day 2, the churches, the organizations were just people that were driving up. I had businesses from Charlotte that were dropping off in front of the police station, had to take over a school as their command post. There were breweries that brought up three generators. A car dealership out of Tarboro brought up Starlink systems for everyone to use. Just people helping people is what this event has become. It's a great tragedy, but every one of us has come back uplifted because we're seeing how much people are working together. The people we were helping were trying to offer us food. The town is upbeat, and they, by this time, there's still no water. Electricity came on in some of the areas after about day 4. There's still no running water, so everyone in the town of, say, Black Mountain is using porta-johns that have been set up. There's no laundry. Donations are coming in to help the people, but when you see they're almost setting up food kitchens to help everyone to make the cooking a bit more communal. Everyone's still upbeat and they're happy because they're alive. And like I said, it's the most common thing we heard. This is a tragedy, but when you look at the human experience and everyone coming together, it is uplifting to be able to experience that. As recovery efforts continue, we urge everyone to avoid traveling to the affected region unless it's absolutely necessary. Your presence could hinder the relief efforts and create additional challenges for those already struggling. There's still fuel shortages in the area. The first few days we were there, when there was no electricity, you can't pump gas out of that. And as we're driving up, it took us a while to get there. There was just vehicles left on the side of the road that had ran out of the gas, that had tried to get out of the area, but couldn't refuel. The devastation is pretty heavy in some of the areas, especially, like I said, Swannanoa. 18-wheelers were lifted and carried, hundreds and hundreds of yards where people were trapped inside, turned over. A church looked like a dollhouse. Half of it had been ripped off and just sitting there, and you could just look inside half of it. So the destruction and the rebuilding efforts, I think, will take, a very, very long time. But the people up there are strong. They're going to need help for quite a long time. Whenever we did get back into where our phones would work or our texts would come through when we hit a Wi-Fi zone, everyone is reaching out to help and how they can assist. I don't want the community to look at this and go, like, right now everyone's focusing on it. That area is going to need help for a very long time. It's a tourism area. So a lot of their financial resources are going to be depleted over the winter. Just everybody remember that area, and if they can, help out, but don't forget the area in the short term. Go for the long term there, because they're going to need it. Any questions I can take from anyone?
I have two. Speak a little bit about the delay in information, not only receiving information, but getting information out. And then also, how will this reflect and help CMPD working at a level with state, local, federal, for if an emergency happens in Charlotte?
Well, when this happened, I was already working in the Emergency Management Center in Charlotte. I'm one of the primaries assigned to that. We have a very robust response here. We do a lot of training. We have a great deal of planning. And, we were still dealing with like the micro floods that we were having here when the ask for assistance came in. This is a storm of a century. One of the gentlemen there that had also works at, say, the Biltmore Estate, I believe it was the flood of either 1918 or 1919, the one they called the Great Flood of the area. where you could tell where the flood level was on the side at Biltmore. This was a foot over that. So this is a historic storm that stayed in the area for a very long time. So this is something you can't plan for. The problem is so large and it affects so many people that there is a lot of communication gaps. I can't say that anyone would be able to communicate well up there with so many problems, especially like I said, there was one phone working, and they still managed to get through. And as soon as we got our Sprinter van there, the drone we use for a drone van, and got Wi-Fi, that was the first time in many days that those officers were able to reach out and let their families know they're okay. And that was just them, the entire community up there. Like right now, I was talking to the chief of Black Mountain, and at the time we have at least 6,000 people listed as missing. That number will go down. That's a lot of people were able to get out. It's a big vacation community, or people who live there for a few months or live in another place. They just don't know where they're at. We hope they got out. But there will be numbers in there that were probably killed in this storm that unfortunately will be, also discovered later. It's just, this is a huge event that's going to take a very long time to work through. I think the agencies there did the best they could with the resources that they have.
What was the most surprising thing for you going in?
Honestly, what I said, after a few days, just that people weren't despondent. I mean, no power, no water. They were all working together. Just, it gives you I've got a lot of faith in humanity after seeing that. When you see stuff that doesn't always work like that, and you're able to go to a community, and it wasn't just family or on the street. Everyone was helping out as much as they can because they say a neighbor or just another place had been through it. A lot of the resources were coming from the coast because they had been through this before and they had gotten help. So when they see something this tragic, they want to come in. It's just the logistical problems that you don't think of. You think you might not have power, you might not have water for a day or two, but when you have to look at you might not have water for a month or 2 months, how do you survive? It's taking us back to living pre-1900s and capabilities for that region. And we've gotten so electronically dependent. We're sitting there and the kids aren't able to go to school. They're out playing in the yards, fortunately, but you wonder, one of my concerns is how are they going to be affected long term? They've been through a very scary tragedy. Their lives are going to be affected for a long time. I want the schools to get back. The Black Mountain Police had a kind of a national night out event planned for later that week, and they were all sad that the kids we're looking forward to this, just a bounce house and this and that. And my suggestion was get this back as soon as you can. That community needs a return to normal, even though it's going to be a long time for everything to come back. They need return to normalcy, and any event like that you can do for the kids or the families just to feel that I think will help.
Any recommendations? Hurricane season's not over yet. Is there anything as seniors or families or community we should start looking at and learn from?
There's a lot you can learn from this. Emergency preparedness. This can happen anywhere at any time. The government, the U.S. sites and experts always say have at least 3 days of supplies on hand. Be prepared if your power does go out. Just like our region had a lot of power out for several days. You've got to be able to sustain for at least 3 days of water, emergency candles, and food that you can eat that doesn't require electricity or propane gas. Because as much as we have invested in emergency response and resources, an event that hits the entire community is overwhelming. So you have to be able to sustain yourself for at least that long. Have an emergency plan. A lot of the people said, well, I've got a friend here if I can make it to them. But they didn't have the logistics to make it to them. The roads were impassable, and people they would have emergency generators that had to be filled with propane, and that road's going to be shut down for 2 months, so he's going to run out of propane before that. People who had prepped didn't have all of the answers.
I just wanted to clarify, so all the initial officers and the medic that went up on Friday are all back?
We're all back. CMPD will keep a footprint up there. There are another 16 or 17 officers up there now. We've got that group will rotate back tomorrow, and we're sending another 15 up. We're going to support that area as much as we can. Our helicopter unit is also part of the helicopter relief efforts in the area, working through another command. That's another thing. The sky was filled with helicopters and planes while I was up there, between private pilots and the military once it got going. The Cajun Navy was up there and just looking for work. I mean, there's so many organizations looking to help and drop off. Like I said, by day 2 or day 3, you couldn't go down a street that at least at the bottom didn't have a pallet of water and food supplies laid out for people to get. You don't want to sustain yourself long on that, but it's the emergency relief supplies that get people through the first few days until we can get it back to normal.
You were talking about the terrain, how difficult it is, and talking about the training. This isn't training that you guys the officers go through on a daily basis to climb up mountain terrains during wet conditions. Just talk about the stress of just having to do that under those conditions.
That's why we took the units that we did. We took officers up on this first group because we knew it would be rough conditions. We fully expected to get there, sleep on a floor somewhere, not have electricity, not have showers. We ended up staying. There was a conference center that took us in, but yet no water, no power for the first several days. And we do not joke, this was a tragic incident, but at times in training you go through, hey, we're going to do a litter carry, we're going to do this, and you say, I'm never going to do this that far, and then we did. So it's just being able to, the officers that we took up were officers that I could look at and go, fix this problem, deploy to this. They were very self-motivated, able to see what needed to be done, and were willing to get the job done. They had a smile on their face the entire time, even though it was rough, even though you might fall over a couple of trees. It was funny. We encountered bears. I think they were more scared or I don't know who was more scared, the bears or us, when we encountered each other. The wildlife in the area, that was one thing when we were trying to get the people out. We also evacuated several pets, or we also got people who didn't want to leave. We were able to get water up to them and pet food. That was a lot of the big problems. They refused to leave their pets, but we were able to get them supplies that would last at least a few more days, lugging 40-pound dog food bags up a mountain to assist these people because we wanted to help them.
Had you ever seen anything like this before in your career, this type of damage?
Not to this extent. The closest, they were asking us that when we got there, because we came in and we were pretty good at handling a lot of situations. The closest I can remember in Charlotte, besides some hurricanes, I was a teenager in Hugo, was a decade or so ago. We were working CIAA, and then a string of tornadoes came through close to midnight that hit the Plaza Road extension area. And I remember we had all worked, several days straight during CIAA, and then had a very extensive tornado event that knocked out several neighborhoods, and we had to switch in with fire immediately and start search and rescue that lasted about 3 days. This is as close as I can remember to that, being exhausted, working straight through the same thing. You're being ordered to go home because you're just like these officers. You don't want to leave because people are trapped, but you're not effective after about 36 hours straight. That's the closest I can remember as a weather event that we've worked.
Talk a little bit about the weather event, because trying to land helicopters and things, and then if you got destruction, roads, there's no landing pad, correct?
They're using schools. They're using anything they can. They would call, as much as they could, they would call us, Cajun Navy, a lot of organizations up there. We would clear the field off for them to make sure there's no debris, and they would come in as safely as possible. Some of the civilian pilots are probably not following all the rules that they have to for safety, but they're getting the job done.
Okay. So thank you so much, Major Thomas. As Major mentioned, we are going to share a PICA link of like photos that Major Thomas and his team actually were able to capture. So we will send those out via the media release email. And then also the Charlotte Communication and Marketing team, they're going to put out a video as well on Monday that will be available too. So please look out for that as well.
Okay, get his name one more time, so make him sure.
Major J.D. Thomas and
Yeah, just J.D. Thomas works.
Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yep. And I'm just telling the police side, the medic side, there's fire's still up there working, and they're doing their search and rescue stuff, so they're deployed to other areas. Charlotte's doing a lot up there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.